From now onwards, we are going to discuss about regulatory framework. Under regulatory framework, we have to discuss in two type of frameworks. One is domestic. When in case of domestic procurement, so the organization, government organization and bidders should follow two things. One is statutes, acts, right? Statutes mean act and any laws. Statutes governing procurement actions and national procurement guidelines and guidelines, manual and regulations. So these two are applicable for domestic purchase, procurement, and in case of international procurement, the organizations have to follow procurement provisions in foreign financing agreement and procurement guidelines of international organizations. We will start our discussion from this statutes governing procurement actions. It means what are the local acts which regulates the procurement actions in public sector organizations. Right. First, regulatory framework, domestic, and statutes governing procurement actions. What are the laws applicable? Which law is applicable in controlling and monitoring the local procurements in public sector organizations? The laws applicable to procurement actions in Sri Lanka shall be laws of domestic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. The Public Contract Act, like Companies Act, for governing the contract actions in Sri Lanka, the act is the Public Contract Act number 3 of 1987. Number 3 of 1987 Public Contract Act is applicable for every public contract that exceeds 5 million rupees. Right? Any procurement, any contract, the contract value exceeds the 5 million Sri Lankan rupees, and that procurement should adapt into the Public Contract Act number 3 of 1987. If any contract below 5 million, it is not mandatory to adhere with Public Contract Act. Section 8 of the Public Contract Act provides that any person who act as an agent, right? Any person who act as an agent or sub-agent, representative or nominee for or on behalf of any tender, right? Any persons, right? Any persons on behalf of the tenderer, right? The tenderer mean they are applying for bids, right? The service provider or work provider, goods provider, right? The tenderer, potential service provider, is called tenderer, right? Any representative, right? Any person on behalf of the tenderer shall register himself and such public contract in accordance with section 10 and shall furnish to the registrar the particulars required to be furnished under section 6, right? So this section says three things, right? The first thing, who, to whom the sections belongs to. These sections belongs to any agent or sub-agent, representative or nominee of tenderer, right? Tenderer shall register himself. He should register, right? He should register. And such public contract in accordance with section 10 right? How he register? Based on the amendment section 10 in the section of the act, right? Section 8. Section 10 explains how to register. Self-earn is the registrar, right? To whom the registrar. That's an officer called registrar. From the registrar, they have to register as agent or sub-agent or representative of the tender according to the section 10. Registrar, the particulars required to be furnished under section 6. So what type of particulars, what type of information should be provided, that is explained in the section 6. Section 6. So in this paragraph, you may understand that every agent or representative should register with registrar according to the section 10 based on the information explained in the section 6. Right? What are the particulars? Is explained in the 6. Right? Section 8, subsection 2, where any person is an agent, sub-agent, representative, or nominee for on behalf of a tenderer. So keep in your mind, a representative or nominee of a tenderer, he shall first produce a certificate. He should first produce a certificate of his appointment as agent, sub-agent, or representative, nominee to the registrar. Right? So if anybody has appointed as a nominee or representative or agent on behalf of the tenderer, he should submit a certificate of appointment. Right? He should produce a certificate of his appointment as agent or whatever to the registrar. It means simply, if anybody want to act as a nominee on behalf of tenderer, he should submit a certificate of appointment. And simply we say letter of appointment to the registrar. Right? And section 9, right? Section 9 say 9.1 says every person who contravenes or fails to comply with the provision of section 8. Section 8 says what? The agent should be registered. Agent should be registered. If any person violates the section 8, shall be guilty on an offense and shall be liable on conviction to a fine of 100,000 rupees and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. Right? For if any agent of any tender violate the rules according to the section 8, then that is a punishable offense. The tender is guilty, right? For that offense, he should have to be fined for about 100,000 rupees, 1 lakh, and also he should be in the jail, imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 2 years. 2 years not 2 years and 100,000. That's a fine for them. That's a punishment for the tenderer or any person who violate the section 8 of the Contract Act, of the Public Contract Act number 3 of 1987. Right. So the section 9 is talk about deal with what is the punishment for anybody who is violating the section 8 of the Public Contract Act. Section 12. Any member of a public body, it means the public sector organization, right? So it may be in the form of procuring entity and ministry, right, or the department who are engaging in the procurement process. Any member of a public body or technical committee or tender board or evaluation board of such body or any officer or employee thereof or any state officer or the registrar except for the purpose of registration shall not have any dealing with any person referred to the section 8 in regard to any matters arising out of or in relation to any public contract unless the person referred to in section 8 first produce a valid certificate of registration issued under this act, right? It's mean simply in our own words, the tenderer on his behalf, right, do not have any dealing with officers in the procurement entity. The officer may be in the form of member of technical committee or tender board, evaluation board, right, or any employee in that organization or registrar. He should not have any dealing with them. But they have make a dealing with registrar for the purpose of registration. For the purpose of registration. So other than the registration, they don't have rights to deal with the procuring entity. So it's a very serious offense, right? The government entity should maintain the confidentiality among their profession, among their procurement process. There is no discrimination or bias to keep the discretion, right? To maintain the confidentiality. Any officers do not maintain any relationship with the tenderer or bidder, but the agent or representative can do something, right? Because for that he should submit the certificate to have a dealing with them, official dealing with them, right? Shall not have any dealing with any person referred to in section 8 in regard to any matters arising out of or in relation to any public contract unless the person referred to section 8 first produce a valid certificate of registration issued under this act. Any person who contravenes the provision of this act shall be guilty of an offense. If any officers or any person violate this section 12, it's a serious offense. It's a serious offense. So there should be no dealing with procuring entities, procuring officers, and the bidders, right? So they can deal with registrar, the registrar through the agent. The agent should be registered according to the Public Procurement Act. Section 9(2), no person required to be registered. No person required to be registered under the section 8 shall have any dealing directly or indirectly relating to public contract. Right? No person, right? Nobody required to be registered under section 8 shall have any dealing directly or indirectly relating to a public contract. So with the registrar, except for the purpose of registration, right? So if anybody have a dealing with the registrar, he should not be, he unable to register as a agent, right? He cannot be, if anybody having dealing directly or indirectly with registrar, he never become a agent or nominee or representative on behalf of the tenderer. But in the occasion of purpose of registration, they can keep a dealing with registrar. Other than this, there should be a no dealing with them. With any member of public body, with any member of public body, a technical committee or tender board or evaluation board of such body, or any officer or employee thereof, any state officers, right? So it simply it means if anybody having relationship, dealing directly or indirectly with the procurement officers, cannot be registered, cannot be act as representative, agent or nominee, agent or sub-agent, right? No, he can't be registered without first producing a valid certificate of registration under this act. And if such person has any dealing or attempt to have any dealing, he shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction thereof to fine not exceeding 100,000 rupees or to imprisonment for the term of not exceeding 2 years, right? If anybody who are maintaining a dealing or relationship with the procuring entity or registrar, whoever, it's a serious offense, right? Serious offense, it's a guilty, right? It's a violation of Public Contract Act, right? So the strictly says this act, section 8, 10, 9, section 8, section 8, 9, 12 clearly strictly says the tenderer or on behalf of tenderer, nobody should not maintain any direct or indirect dealing with them, right? Without producing, if he is an agent, he should be submit a letter resignation, letter of certificate of registration. That person only, the nominee or the agent or the representative only can have a dealing with them. So with other than the registered persons, other than that people, nobody able to communicate or deal with them directly or indirectly with officers. So that is about statutes governing procurement actions. So its statute includes what? The Public Procurement Act number 3 of 1987. It mainly it has it says what? If anybody wanted to have a dealing with the procuring entity, they should be a registered. So they should be a registered person, registered agent. So other than the registered agent, nobody can have a dealing with them. And also, if anybody have dealing with them, they are not eligible to be registered as a agent. Right? If anybody violate these rules, it will be a punishable offense. And we'll see now the National Procurement Guidelines and Guidelines Manual and Regulations. So these National Procurement Guidelines initially issued in 2006 by National Procurement Agency. Still, they are relying on that And there was amendment in 2018. You can find in the Gazette. If you type Google National Procurement Guidelines Sri Lanka, you can find a lengthy document. Then you can find. Right. National Procurement Agency's procurement guidelines, manual, and regulations set for the procedures that should be adhered to by the procuring entity in carrying out any procurement actions financed in whole or in part by the government of Sri Lanka or a foreign funding agency. Right? It's simply all public procurement, whether it's funded by government of Sri Lanka or foreign funding agency, no matter, they have to strictly follow the government procurement guidelines, national procurement guidelines, so procurement guidelines and manuals. The present national procurement agency's guidelines repealed the earlier guidelines on government tender procedure, right? So before the guidelines issued by the National Procurement Agency, so invalidate the previous versions, previous tender procedures on government sector. Right? Earlier there were guidelines on government tender procedure, right? And revised guidelines on government tender procedure for project assisted by the foreign funding agencies, revised edition 2000, and treasury circulars pertaining to the guidelines on government tender procedure issued up to 2005. All things are invalidated after issuing the guideline. The guideline is initially issued in 2006. Before 2006, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So one is the guidelines on government tender procedure. It has invalidated. Revised guideline on government tender procedure for project assisted by the foreign funding agency, revised edition 2000, that's also invalidated. And treasury circulars pertaining to the guidelines on government tender procedure up to 2005. So these three editions are invalidated due to the introduction of the latest guideline of National Procurement Agency. And in 2018, National Procurement Commission has issued a new latest guideline. Then I can show you. I will upload, right? I will upload in VLE, so it's time consuming. Now it's good to show you. You can see in the screen procurement manual 2018. Right, domestic socialist Republic of Sri Lanka procurement manual 2018 is for goods, work, service, and information system to be used along with government procurement guideline 2018 for goods, work, service, and information system. So it is published by National Procurement Commission. National Procurement Commission. So now no longer available. Both National Procurement Agency and National Procurement Commission also not available presently. And the National Procurement Agency was taken over by the Ministry of Finance, Treasury, and Good Governance has established a new commission that's called National Procurement Commission. And due to the 20th Amendment of Sri Lanka recently passed, so the National Procurement Commission also vanished, right? You can find here National Procurement Commission. So you can see the website of them. So this is the website of National Procurement Commission. Right, they are clearly mentioned. National Procurement Commission has been abolished by 20th Amendment. So then you can find the guidelines and manual, and you can download here procurement guidelines and manual right here. So it is available in 3 languages: English, Sinhala and Tamil. Right, this is the latest one, procurement guidelines, goods, work, service and information system. It's a lengthy document. We can find it, right? You can find and use. Right. 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 The regulatory framework, domestic procurement guidelines, manual and regulations. So national procurement guidelines and manual. So procurement guideline, manual and regulations can be divided into 2. Guidelines for procuring entity, guidelines for government organization which are going to procure for, right, and it can be divided further by 2. Guidelines for the procurement of goods, works and non-consultant services. Non-consultant services, I have already explained to you what is consultant services and non-consultant services in the previous classes, and it can be divided into further 2. And guidelines for goods, works and non-consultant services. It's a guideline and it's manual. One guideline and one manual. Manual for goods, works and non-consultant services and its supplements, its appendices, right? And there's a special provision for guidelines for the procurement of consultant services. So consultant service, for example, architectural service, then information system services, then syllabus revision, for the universities, and there are policy developing services, right, and the engineering services, legal advices. These are coming under the consultant services. So non-consultant services, we can say, for example, transportation service, cleaning service, security service, right? So that kind of things will fall under here. So the guidelines for the procurement of consultant services can be divided into further. So one is guideline for the consultant service, another one is a manual for the consultant services, and its supplements. And so national procurement guidelines, manual and regulations. Another part is guideline for contractors or other parties in procurement. One for the government organizations and this which are getting the service or works or goods, and another set of guidelines for the suppliers of that services, suppliers for the contractors. Example, a bidder's guide to success in public procurement, a handbook. So these are the summary of the guideline, manual and regulation. Guideline for goods, work and non-consultant services, this part, right? Non-consultant services. A procurement guideline for works and goods, 2006, now it's 2019 or 18. Procurement guidelines for private sector infrastructure project. Procurement guidelines for pharmaceutical and medical devices, right? There are three different set of guidelines under this. And the second part, this one, manual for goods, works and non-consultant services and its supplements. Procurement manual 2006, now its latest one 2018 or 19. There are 34 supplements to this manual as of July 2018. And guidelines for consultant services, so guideline for selection and employment of consultant, procurement manual 2006, and manual for consultant services and its supplements. So guideline and manual, consulting services manual, consultant service manual 2007. Now we see foreign funded project, for international one, foreign. So procurement provision in foreign financing agreements. In case of a foreign funded project, if the foreign funding agency mandates the use of procurement guidelines of such funding agency, for example, World Bank, European Union, IMF, such funding agencies guidelines shall be prevail over the national guideline to the extent applicable, right? If government organization is funded by the European Union and European Union instruct the government organizations to follow their own guidelines, it means European Union's guidelines, and in such situations, or Sri Lankan government organization should follow European Union's guidelines rather than national guidelines. So because these are the conditions of their funding. In the event of conflict between these guidelines and that of funding agency, the funding agency's guideline shall take precedence over the guidelines. So if there are any conflict between the national guideline and the donors, the funding agency guideline, the funding agency guideline will be supersede the national guideline. And procurement guidelines of international organization. So other international guidelines which has good procurement practices, which includes World Bank guidelines, Unilateral Model Law, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, United Nations Commission on International Trade and Law, European Union Procurement Rules, GPA of WTO Agreement on Government Procurement, and NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement Procurement Rules, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC Procurement Principles. So common features of procurement guidelines, local and international. What are the common features? Here it should have a clear statement of objectives. Each procurement guidelines should have a clear statement of objectives, and it should be a wider publicity. So it can be found everywhere. Wider publicity and non-discriminatory specification. Non-discriminatory specifications. Open tender as the general rule. It should be not a secret one. So open tender as general rule. Fair bidding procedure. Fair bidding procedure. Disclose of qualifications and selection criteria. Disclose of qualification and selection criteria to become a bidder or tenderer. Public bid opening. Evaluation by disclosed criteria. Evaluation by pre-disclosed criteria, publication of award, and appeal or changes, appeal or challenge. So debriefing procedures. So in case of comparative tender, so one will be successful, so rest of them are not successful. This time in the situation, the non-successful tenderer will file a lot of queries, right? So at that time, the procurement manual, the guidelines should guide them to deal with that situations. And fair conditions of contract and quick dispute resolution mechanism. So these are the